Welcome to the Re-Entry Archive. It could be worse. We could be stars responsible for entire solar systems. A Mescaline experience report taken from erowid.org. The mescaline was a blend, roughly 2/3 synthetic mescaline hydrochloride and 1/3 mescaline hydrochloride and related phenethylamines, painstakingly extracted from Peruvian torch skins 2 years prior. 300 milligrams dissolved into fruit juice with ease and with no noticeable flavour. Slowly consuming the juice through the initial hike would help mitigate nausea, although Albert opted to consume his portion in a single capsule when we arrived at the campsite. Sarah took half of her highly dosed blotter of LSD and did so with apprehension, as this was her first time taking any serious psychedelic drug. I needed something to come out of this experience. I had strong, though vague intentions and expectations. I wasn't sure where exactly to focus the work I was hoping to do on myself, but I had reached a point in my life where something had to give. The factors that contributed to this state are hard to delineate without becoming long-winded, but I suppose that if I was to distill the matter, I could say that I was mourning the death of my adolescence. The responsibilities of maintaining adulthood were encroaching on my emotional well-being from all of the usual angles, and I simply did not have the time nor the raw willpower to face these conflicts as they developed. So they compounded. As a matter of fact, I did not have the time nor the willpower to do much of anything anymore, due to the disproportionate amount of value I was ascribing to my career. There were, of course, practical reasons for this valuation, but the resulting collateral damage was reaching a fever pitch. I was working long hours on a new project with increasing responsibility, and though my newfound emotional investment in my work was bringing me satisfaction, it was also turning my mind inside out. I did not know how to proceed with the marriage of my work and my broader life, two things which I previously had kept separate, with no desire to mix. My plan was to get to the bottom of it all. By understanding the roots of these emotional impasses, I hoped to develop healthier coping mechanisms. This was a sort of last hurrah for Kyle and I. In August, he would be moving to New York to attend law school, and I had just assigned a lease for an apartment in Austin, largely thanks to the good money I made while digging myself into the emotional hole I have described. A long and beautiful chapter of both of our lives was about to end. It seemed fitting to end it with the subject of our first conversation, mescaline. Mescaline that we had extracted from cactus together. The hike was arduous. The sun was oppressive. We were carrying a large amount of gear, and the desert terrain was challenging at times. We had opted for the primitive campsite, which meant no electricity, no bathrooms, and no nearby supply of portable water. I had downed about half the bottle of mescaline juice pretty quickly. I was beginning to feel alert. Half an hour into the journey and I was still sipping the juice when we took a break for water. Despite this hardship, I was still optimistic about the outcome of the experience, and I embraced the challenge. We had a good group assembled, with some pretty powerful friendship mojo. Kyle, Albert, Sarah and myself. Kyle, a brother in every way but biology, who I was about to part ways with. Albert, another brother, with whom I was about to begin a new life with in Austin. Sarah, a sister, who I had fallen out of touch with over the preceding 3 months, and who to me represented the life that I had largely destroyed with my suboptimal integration of my career. Even the act of driving to Texas with his friends had done a lot to clear my mind and improve my mood. I felt like I was beginning to get back in touch with the better parts of human beings. We reached the camp after hiking for a little over an hour. I was definitely feeling the mescaline as we set up the tents, though Kyle was still only feeling the mild effects. We drank more juice. Both of us now only had a layer of about an inch remaining in our bottles. Albert dropped his capsule. Sarah was beginning to feel the LSD, as well as some nausea. She laid down in the 4-person tent. I brought her ginger, and we gnawed some segments as we stared through the roof of the tent and let the drugs take effect. Mescaline's come up is like a desert flower, gently unfurling its petals towards the spines of the parent succulent. As the petals curl back and gently catch on the spine, and the flower begins to cook in the harsh love of the sun, the petals drop to the earth, one by one, and only barely perceptible fragments remain. Pushed and prodded by the wings of insects and the dry wheeze of the desert wind as it floats along like a ghost, you catch the whiff and must choose the path of the coyote or the javelina. The coyote only notes the fragrance in passing as it ambles through the desert in search of gratification wrought by its own cunning. The javelina follows the fragrance carefully and wisely, analysing its gradual dissolution. It is rewarded with the blood of the cactus in the end. In this way, mescaline enlightens by leading and providing, not by challenging or confronting. But before all else, the petals must fall, and there is a primal discontent when confronted with this image, loss and confusion. Albert was doubled over purging. Is it alright if I throw up? Will I still feel it? Between nibbles of ginger, I joked that if he's concerned about efficacy, maybe he should plug his own vomit. Sarah and I emerged from the tent. I lit a cigarette, and she found a comfortable seat on a log near the campsite. Kyle finished his juice. I take a few more swigs, but leave some remaining. Everybody was coming up. Sarah compares patches of the ground, attempting to discern which of the ants are real and which are a result of the altered state. I am ambling on random paths throughout the campsite, thinking through paths just as aimlessly and occasionally commenting wryly. Albert is now in the fetal position, face in the sand, occasionally making noises of tension or relief. Kyle remarks that he may be doing some hard thinking, but it doesn't feel forced. Rory was not going to him with New York. That was where his petals fell, the source of his discontent, for that which he sought resolution through the cactus. Kyle and I spent some time looking off into the distance, arms raised into the air, embracing the world, speechless. There was a distinct dreaminess to it. I think this may be attributed to the related alkaloids from the full spectrum extract portion of the dose. Synthetic mescaline felt much sharper in my only other experience of it. "This is a beautiful drug," Carl remarked. I began writing in the notebook. It could be worse. We could be stars responsible for the entire solar system. Those thanking us for life are millions of miles away, even if we knew how to accept thanks. Albert had now vomited twice and expressed that he was filled with an uncomfortable body energy, the likes of which he had never felt. His shirt was unbuttoned as he paced frantically through the camp. Mild tears came, but not of sadness, just intense emotions that he was not able to put into words. We decided to direct the energy by hiking to the summit of the enchanted rock. I clumsily prepared supplies: water, food, the notebook, Sarah's camera, and some warm clothing. We set off. As we hiked, I had lost all sense of direction. Kyle somehow seemed to know where we were going. He's a born leader like that. Sarah was using the pen to make a map on her arm. Albert only seemed concerned with forward progress. We've all been there. We departed from the campground and ventured into new terrain. It was very rocky, almost like the surface of the moon. We were still quite a hike from the enchanted rock, but the terrain was a foreshadowing. I paused to look at some water that had collected on the rocky surface, only to realise it was not water at all. It was simply a sort of residue. There's not many things that could do something like that. Nobody points at a parking spot and says, "That's not a car. That's where a car used to be." The vibe was very silly and light-hearted at this point. Albert seemed to be calming down and easing into the plateau. Sarah, despite still feeling nausea, seemed to be having fun. We were laughing a lot and cracking jokes through the rocky section. We soon found ourselves entering the canyon portion of the hike. We began to have doubts about the adventure. Though we had headlamps and a flashlight, it was beginning to get much darker very quickly. Sarah and I doubted our ability to make it back safely in the dark after we had reached the summit. We spent several minutes debating whether or not to continue. We decided to flip a nickel and let Thomas Jefferson decide. Heads we ascend, tails we return. Heads. TJ says we ascend. Headlamps on, we push through the canyon. This is more difficult terrain. Many broken and full of smaller rocks and boulders to traverse. Eventually, we reach a familiar waypoint from the hike in, and we decide to take a break. The stars are hypnotic as I lay on the granite and catch my breath. They are starting to move slightly. My body feels heavy and the dreaminess sets in again. We spend 5 minutes here, just kind of stuck. There is a rustling behind us, and we notice a man walking by with a flashlight. Suddenly, it becomes apparent that we have reached the point where we were able to safely climb the slope of the enchanted rock. We resume the standing posture and begin to carefully push forward up the steep incline toward the lights we see descending. About halfway up, my heart is beating fast, and we take a short break before pushing on. The sense of achievement begins to creep in as we visibly near the summit. My heart is still racing from the steep incline and the mescaline and lack of meaningful nutrition throughout the day. I feel simultaneously weak and excited. We reach even ground, walk 20 more paces. I look around us and notice no further incline. Amazingly, somehow we reach the summit. I was exhausted at this point, and my heart was beating out of my chest. There are several flashes of images illuminated by a headlamp. People's faces, the lunar terrain of the rock, backpacks, clothing. Everything was disjointed. It was an incomprehensible blur, and time seemed to be non-linear. Immediately, I took off my shirt, formed a pillow, and laid down on the rock, facing up to the stars. The following period rapidly evolved into a powerful and ineffable peak experience. Words fail me, but I'll do my best. At one point, in the thick of it, I remarked that I wanted to laugh and cry and puke all at the same time. Let's use that as the thesis statement. As I laid down, looking directly up at the stars, their movement became more pronounced. I retracted further and further into myself. Time disappeared. It was the first thing to go. Classic mescaline. It's always been this way, and it will always be this way. That type of feeling. I was pretty familiar with it by now. What else can you show me? The definition of me began to dissolve. I was kicking dust around the outskirts of Ego Death Town. The light from the stars was both going into me and coming out of me. I was creating it, and it was creating me. The sensation of universal oneness set in. Albert, Kyle, Sarah, they were me. The rock was me. The stars, they were me. It all simply was. The isness, the objective, the Tao, whatever you want to call it. All the rest of it is just ripples in that pool. Now all of the ripples disappeared. The pool itself calmed, the barriers were gone. I was riding the waves in and out of near ego death. Had I finished the bottle of juice, I might have fully broken through, but instead I just oscillated in and out. It was magnificent. A shooting star whizzed by, the first of many we'd seen that night. I realised that a shooting star is our Earth, both destroying something and creating something. It was a direct transformation of matter into inspiration. The stars began to fall like rain. The rain is hitting my skin. I effortlessly realised the fallacy and allowed the rain of stars to enter me completely. I am one with them now, as I have always been. I feel as though I am making love to the universe. The sky above has entered me. The rock beneath me is supporting me with stored warmth from the sun. And I am one with all of them. Breeze caresses me. The feelings, though not explicitly sexual, were reminiscent of the intimacy usually only experienced when in the throes of passion. I was writhing on the ground with pleasure, giggling and grabbing at the rock. I sighed and gritted my teeth. Everything was flowing through me, and I was washed clean by a tidal wave of the most intense and purest joy that I have ever experienced. Observation is creation. It is not a passive state, it is an action with implications. Nothing I write here, after the fact, will remotely capture it. We were mostly silent for nearly 2 hours during the peak. I felt certain that we'd spend all night on the rock. I wanted nothing more. There was a sort of telepathic agreement that this was a big one. We'd taken psychedelics together countless times, in countless settings, but this was huge. Groundbreaking, earth-shattering, not worth defining. We all just knew. We knew that our love was as infinite as anything that could possibly be in the context of inenviable impermanence. Tears came to my eyes, not of joy or sadness, but for reasons I still really can't describe. I wasn't crying. It felt different. We sit around all day making decisions. I was laughing aloud at this point at the absurdity of human experience. We think it means something. Albert engaged me in conversation. How many things do you think are out there right now, looking back at all of this? Looking. 4, I guess. 1. 0, I mean. Look at the stars in the sky and then look at the darkness around them. The more we're laid here, the more stars we've been able to see. The stars are everything, what we are able to perceive with our senses, and the blackness is everything that we simply can't. Our senses are limitations looking at a limitation. It's just my take on it. My looking isn't even your looking. What do you mean? I mean, the way that we perceive is not the sum of all perception. I mean that all of that up there, everything that you think is coming straight into you right now, is actually coming out of you. It is you, I guess. Well, that's part of what I mean anyway. This is why people believe in God, or at least why they started looking at this. We should have never looked up. As I say this, I realised every single word in the sentence was a lie. There is no we, there is no never, there is no should, there is no look, and up. That's just obvious to anybody with basic physics knowledge. I mustered up the strength to roll over, put my head on the rock and close my eyes. This portion of the trip was about the earth instead of the sky. In this moment, the earth and my body were one and the same. Closed-eyed visuals conjured up waterfalls pouring into a cup of a lotus flower, and filling it with energies of strength and weakness. I mused on the singularity of existence and the necessary illusion of the duality that nourishes the 10,000 things. We aren't trying to escape the illusion. We need it. Without it, we wouldn't. Well, we just wouldn't. There'd be no we, no family, my family. There'd be no body splayed out on enchanted rock, trying to reckon with the fact that it's totally based on a tremendous cosmic deception. My thoughts and memories were just ruse after ruse after ruse, a mirage for which I felt profound gratitude. I never asked for any of it, and one day this would all be taken away from me. I spent every day of my life in agony about exactly that, but in this moment I felt overjoyed by it. The 10,000 things rise and fall while the self watches their return. They grow and flourish and then return to the source. I left all of it on that rock. The anger, the disgust, the self-destruction. I was way past any of it. I had followed the fragrance and tasted the blood of the cactus, and I was empowered to keep all of that miles below me because of that. Thank you, Mescalito. Thank you, me. I worship and honour you both. Albert began to nibble on some potent psilocybe cubensis, and soon after was hit with a crisp and euphoric headspace and colourful visuals. Sarah was taking long exposure pictures of the sky with her camera. By this point, I was beginning a mild descent and felt comfortable eating beef jerky and rejoining my friends in conversation. A satellite was visible overhead. We talked about how, at this very moment, someone was probably breaking up via text message using that same satellite. I wasn't ready to talk seriously about much of what had happened in my experience, but I reached out to Kyle because I wanted to see if he had made the same kind of progress that I had. He confirmed that over those 2 hours, he had finally made peace with being forced to end his significant romance of the past 2 years. Furthermore, he was capable of letting go without letting go of her as an individual. He was not over her as a human being, he could never be, but he had found peace. He was able to let go of that chapter of his life. I also asked him about his reflections on mescaline, because although we had tried the drug together several times prior, he never really felt he'd reached a significant level with it. It's a gorgeous drug, unlike anything else. I'm so happy we did this together. He was right. It is a gorgeous drug, so incredibly powerful, but with a really special sort of grace. I was happy and proud that he finally got to experience that. We hugged before slowly making our way back to camp. The vibe returned to silliness. We caught each other up on our lives and told stories. In-jokes were formed and bonds were tampered. In the back of all our minds was what we had just experienced. In the front of Albert's mind were the mushrooms, which he now referred to as the nibbles. His mushroom musings fueled the playful mood of the hike, and I thought about how I couldn't wait to reunite him with the new city. We arrived back at camp and spoke until the sun began to come up. The blistering heat began 4 hours later, and we were forced to vacate the stuffy tents and make our return to the car after only a few hours of sleep. There was a 2-mile hike through 100-degree weather without our gear. Without Carl's leadership, it would have been a disaster. When we finally got back to the car, we sat in the air conditioning momentarily before beginning our return to Austin. During the car ride, we ruminated silently. Even a day later, we had trouble putting it into words. But words are prison cells. There is nothing more to be said. Just more of that pseudo-telepathic understanding. As long as there are stars in the sky, we will remain enchanted. This experience had it all. A physical and psychedelic journey, a dissolution into oneness, an encounter with the existential absurd, a moment of sacred bliss, an appreciation for the cosmos, and a realization of the psychological cycles of destruction and rebirth. There was so much to process here, and, as is often a concern with integration, there is the risk of over-intellectualizing something that was primarily a spiritual or emotional experience. Sometimes, the best integration is to just sit with the experience as it was, and let it do the work that it intended.